Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're going to explore an incredibly impressive and unique project where a man has built a house using wood and bamboo inside a cave on a high cliff. Let's dive into how he built this amazing home. He carefully steps into the cave, taking a moment to survey the space around him. He looks around, assessing the area to determine the best spot for his project. After a few moments of inspection, he begins clearing the area, removing the scattered rocks, leaves, and dirt from the ground. Using his hands and a small tool, he methodically sweeps away all the debris to make space for the next steps. Next, he picks up a hammer and starts striking the small stones that are embedded in the earth. With each strike, the stones break into smaller pieces, and he carefully uses a shovel to scoop them up and remove them. This task requires patience and precision, as he wants to create a flat, level surface for building. Afterward, he brings in 2 short wooden logs and 2 long wooden logs into the cave, carefully placing them where he has leveled the ground. He positions the 2 long logs on top of the short logs, creating grooves at the ends of the long logs. Using a hammer and nails, he secures the long logs to the short ones, forming a rectangular frame, essentially the base of the bed. Next, he brings in several wooden planks, which he will use to complete the bed frame. With a saw in hand, he begins carefully cutting the planks to match the width of the bed frame. As he saws, his movements are precise and deliberate, ensuring each plank is cut to the exact size he wants. He takes extra care with each cut, making sure that the edges are smooth and the planks are uniform. Once the planks are cut to the desired size, he begins laying them across the bed frame, starting from one end and working his way across. He carefully places each plank, aligning it perfectly with the frame, and then nails each plank securely in place. Next, he brings a long wooden log into the cave. With careful planning, he begins to saw the log into 2 shorter pieces, each cut to a manageable length. The cave's height is just about level with his shoulders, so the space is somewhat tight, but this doesn't seem to faze him. He places the 2 shorter logs vertically, standing them up on either side of the cave. Then, he collects several more logs, each one carefully chosen for its length and strength. He saws them into even shorter pieces, each one cut to the appropriate size for the next part of the project. With these smaller pieces, he begins to construct a wall frame, creating 3 rectangular sections running vertically. After measuring and adjusting, he carefully nails the pieces together, forming a sturdy wall frame. Once the frame is assembled, he secures it firmly to one side of the cave wall, attaching it to the vertical support log. After completing the first wall frame, he proceeds to create a similar structure, repeating the same process. He nails the second frame into place, securing it to 2 vertical posts, ensuring both frames are stable and well-aligned. To further reinforce the structure, he adds 2 shorter logs horizontally across the rectangular frames, attaching them at the top and bottom edges. With each addition, the framework of the house becomes more solid. Next, he brings several wooden planks into the cave, ready to continue working on the walls. Approaching the side wall, he begins placing the planks horizontally across the frame, starting from the bottom and working his way up. With each plank, he carefully nails it into place, ensuring it fits snugly within the frame. Once the first side wall is complete, he moves on to the opposite side, repeating the same process. He turns his attention to the front wall, which is more complex because it has 3 frames, 2 for the walls and 1 for the main door. For the side frames, he arranges the planks vertically, placing them neatly inside the 2 frames on either side. These vertical planks will create the solid portion of the front wall. Once the planks are secured for the side walls, he moves to the next stage, adding small square openings to the side walls to create windows. He measures and saws the wooden planks to create these openings, taking care to ensure they are evenly spaced and properly sized. Next, he takes several long wooden planks and begins sawing them into shorter pieces, carefully measuring each one to ensure they're the right size. He takes another log and splits it lengthwise into 2 halves. He lays the planks side by side, aligning them neatly. He attaches 1 half to the edge of each door panel, giving the doors a more finished appearance while also reinforcing their edges. After finishing the assembly, he lifts the doors and places them in the door frame to test their fit. Once he's satisfied with the fit, he begins installing the hinges. Using small, sturdy metal hinges, he attaches 1 side to the edge of each door. With a few strong hits from his hammer, the hinges are securely fastened. Next, he moves to the door frame, where he marks corresponding positions for the other side of each hinge. Using the same method, he attaches the hinges to the frame, driving the nails in securely. After confirming the first door is functioning perfectly, he repeats the process for the second door. For the finishing touch, he crafts the unique door handles. He selects the curved wooden pieces, shaping and smoothing them into ergonomic grips. Next, he saws several short wooden logs, carefully selecting each piece for its size and quality. Using a sharp knife, he meticulously strips the bark from the surface of each log, revealing the smooth wood underneath. His knife strokes are steady and precise, ensuring each peg is uniform in size and shape. He then takes the shorter wooden logs and carefully carves grooves into both ends, crafting notches that will interlock with the pegs. Each groove is crafted with precision, forming a notch that will interlock perfectly with the pegs on the other logs. Next, he selects a longer wooden log and carves similar grooves into its ends, ensuring the notches align perfectly with the pegs on the shorter logs. This log will act as a horizontal support, tying the entire frame together. He connects the 4 logs together, fitting the notches and pegs snugly into place, forming a rectangular structure. Using nails, he secures the joints to reinforce the frame, ensuring it is stable and sturdy. He brings several wooden planks to the work area and begins arranging them across the frame. Once the planks are laid out evenly, he nails them into place, one by one, securing them tightly to the frame below. He lifts the table and carries it into the house. He selects a spot near the front wall, close to the main door, and carefully places the table against the wall. After ensuring the table is level, he secures it to the wall using nails, driving them into the frame to anchor the table firmly in place. After completing the table, he turns his attention to crafting a small chair to accompany it. Next, he begins working on a traditional wooden lock system, reminiscent of olden times, to secure the door. He starts by carving a long, rectangular block of wood that will serve as the locking bar. Using his knife, he shapes the block until it is smooth and uniform, paying special attention to the ends. Once the components are ready, he moves to the door. With the brackets in place, he slides the bar into position, testing its movement. Finally, he tests the entire lock system, sliding the bar into the locking position. Next, he gathers some firewood and lights a small fire in front of the house using dry leaves and twigs. Once the flames are steady, he places pieces of meat onto a grill rack, clamps it shut, and positions it over the fire. Sitting at the table he built, he enjoys the meal. He then tidies up, heads inside, and lays down on his bed. The next morning, he leaves the house and returns with several long wooden logs. He places 2 of the longest logs diagonally from the ground to the edge of the cave entrance on the cliff. Next, he cuts shorter pieces of wood to use as steps. Each piece is measured to fit snugly across the 2 long logs. He begins at the bottom, placing the first step horizontally across the 2 base logs and securing it firmly with nails. The rhythmic sound of hammering echoes through the forest as he continues upward, step by step, attaching each wooden plank with precision. Gradually, the structure takes shape, rising from the forest floor to the entrance of the cave. After completing the staircase, he gathers several long bamboo poles from the forest and brings them back to the cliffside. Once he has enough bamboo, he selects 7 sturdy poles and carefully places them across the gap, stretching from the edge of the cave entrance to the opposite side of the cliff. These will serve as the main support beams for the bamboo bridge. He adjusts each pole to ensure they are evenly spaced and firmly resting on both sides of the gap. Next, he cuts a shorter piece of bamboo, selecting a section that is straight and strong. Using his knife, he trims and carves it down to a smaller diameter, ensuring it will fit snugly into the bamboo beams. Then, he uses a sharp tool to drill holes into the ends of the 7 long bamboo poles. These holes are precisely aligned, allowing the short bamboo piece to pass through each one, connecting the poles together. With careful movements, he inserts the carved bamboo rod through the holes, threading it through all 7 beams. He then gathers 6 long wooden logs from the forest and brings them back to the base of the bridge. Once he returns, he begins by setting up 3 pairs of the long logs, positioning them vertically at key points beneath the bridge. These logs will serve as the primary support posts for the structure. He carefully arranges the logs, ensuring they are evenly spaced and aligned, then uses shorter pieces of wood to secure each pair of long logs together, forming 3 solid vertical supports. With the supports in place, he climbs up onto the bridge and begins to trim the top sections of the logs. Using a saw, he carefully cuts the logs so that their tops are left at a height level with his waist, ensuring they will be the perfect height for the handrails. Next, he gathers more long wooden logs and begins laying them across the tops of the 3 vertical posts, connecting the logs at each point to create a sturdy framework for the bridge's railing. After finishing the handrail for the bridge, he proceeds to attach a horizontal beam from the bridge railing to the edge of the stairway at the cave entrance. Once the beam is firmly in place, he collects thin bamboo strips to use for the stairway's railing. Using a power drill and screws, he carefully fixes each bamboo strip vertically into the stairway's framework, starting from the bottom and working his way up. After completing the stairway, he cuts more thin bamboo strips and heads over to the bridge to add vertical bamboo strips to the railing. He carefully attaches each strip, working from one side of the bridge to the other. These bamboo pieces are arranged in a vertical pattern, creating a grid-like design of rectangular openings along the length of the bridge's handrail. Once the first side is complete, he moves to the opposite side of the bridge and repeats the process, attaching the bamboo strips one by one. By the time he's finished, the bridge has a fully enclosed railing with neat, rectangular gaps that allow for visibility while still offering protection as he walks across. He begins by using a shovel to level the ground along the cliffside. With focused effort, he creates a shallow trench along the edge of the area, ensuring it runs smoothly in a straight line. Afterward, he carefully places large stones along the trench, positioning them neatly to form a stable base. The heavy stones help to define the path and keep the earth from shifting over time. Once the stones are securely in place, he uses a pickaxe to dig around the edges of the rocks, filling in the gaps with earth to ensure the stones stay firmly embedded in the ground. Next, he gathers several long wooden logs from the forest and brings them back to the cliffside. Once at the site, he cuts a log to size and carefully positions it across the top of the two cliff edges. With the beam secured in place, he digs a few holes into the ground beneath it, preparing the foundation for the vertical supports. He selects a few long logs and cuts them into the appropriate lengths for the vertical posts. Next, he starts the process of assembling the two rectangular frames for the archway. He takes the vertical posts and places them parallel to each other, adjusting their positioning to ensure they are perfectly aligned. After that, he cuts several shorter logs to serve as the horizontal crossbars that will connect the vertical posts. Once the frames are ready, he carefully stands them upright and places the bottoms of the frames into the holes he had previously dug. After cutting several tall bamboo stalks and logs, he transports them back to the site where the gate is being constructed. Once at the gate, he begins by cutting the logs into shorter sections, making sure each piece is uniform in size. The logs are thick and sturdy, requiring careful attention to the cutting process to ensure each piece is measured accurately. He carefully arranges these logs to form two rectangular frames, each frame sturdy enough to serve as the foundation for the gate's doors. Using his saw, he cuts the bamboo into shorter pieces, adjusting the length according to the size of the frames. He takes each section of bamboo and carefully slices it lengthwise with his machete, aiming to create strips that are as even as possible. The machete easily glides through the bamboo, but he is careful not to split it too deeply, as he needs the bamboo to remain intact and long, flexible strips. He takes the sturdy pieces of wood and positions them horizontally across the two rectangular frames that he has already constructed. Once he has enough bamboo, he starts arranging them across the two rectangular frames. He alternates between laying the long bamboo strips and the shorter ones, carefully positioning each piece in an alternating pattern, creating a tight and even surface. With the bamboo securely attached to both frames, he then turns his attention to the final step. He carefully lifts each of the completed frames and positions them onto the gate support structure. Using his saw, he cuts these new pieces into shorter sections, preparing them for the next step. Once the bamboo is cut, he begins to split them into thinner strips, just as he did before, using his machete to slice each piece lengthwise with precision. The bamboo splits cleanly, and he is careful to maintain consistent width for each strip. With the bamboo strips prepared, he begins to lay them horizontally across the two rectangular frames of the gate. He takes additional bamboo strips and forms a crisscross pattern, securing them at the top of the frame in the shape of an X. After completing the X at the top, he continues placing the remaining bamboo strips across the frames. Using his hammer and chisel, he carefully approaches two large stones that are positioned close to each other against the rock wall. These stones are rough and uneven, but he sees their potential as the base for a simple table and chair set. With focused precision, he begins to tap gently with the hammer on the chisel, chiseling away at the surface of the stones. The stone table and chair, though simple, are perfectly functional and blend harmoniously with the natural surroundings. He spots a curved piece of wood, naturally shaped by the flow of the water. With a careful hand, he picks up the piece and carries it back. Carefully, he digs small holes along the dirt trail, planting the saplings one by one. As he works, the path begins to take on a more inviting and lively feel. As evening falls, he gathers dry twigs and starts a small fire. He roasts a banana blossom he had collected earlier, enjoying the sweet, smoky flavor as it cooks. He takes a bite, savoring the unique flavor of the roasted banana blossom. He went into the house and closed the door, ending a long day.